fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
The comedy movie event of the year, Mike and Nick and Alice. Coming only to Hulu and Disney Plus this Friday.
Time to party.
That's a great attitude.
It's a time-traveling, ass-kicking movie event.
You sound insane.
Starring Vince Vaughn, James Marsden, and Asa Gonzalez.
I thought you were a clone.
Well, clones aren't real, dummy.
And time machines are super grounded in reality.
Mike and Nick and Alice. Rated R. Written and directed by Ben David Grabinski. Only on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Start your day with Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal. The instant oatmeal ready to help you tackle whatever your day brings. Like wrangling your toddler into their car seat. That was fun. Coaching your 6th graders soccer team. Go girls! And carrying all the groceries in one trip. Whew. Try Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal, Granola, and Bars. Great taste and a good source of protein. Quaker, bring out the good.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode number 812 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. It is Sunday, March 22nd, 2026. And if you hear the pitter-patter of the feet, that means Duke is still dancing after an 81-58 win over Texas Christian University. We're here to recap all of it. I'm Donald One. I'm your host for this episode. I have Jason Evans with me. Jason, you were at the game in Greenville, South Carolina. You had a interesting seat, didn't you? I think I saw where you were. In fact, I did see where you were. Most people did.
Yeah, the guy. If you watched Ian Eagle and Grant Hill and Bill Rafferty in the pregame and at halftime, when they do the 3 shots of those guys, there was a dude seated directly behind them, literally directly behind them, wearing a blue and white check shirt. Now, if you're on press row, obviously you don't wear specific Duke gear. You won't wear a Duke hat. You won't wear, something that's branded. But you can wear certain colors, and that was me, literally directly behind Grant Hill. They at one point, Donald, by the way, I grabbed a Diet Coke can from the press room, and I brought it back out with me, and I wasn't even really thinking about where I was seated and what was going on. And a guy from CBS came up to me with a cup, and he picked up my Coke can, poured it in the cup, and took the Coke can away because I was giving Coca-Cola free. Like, I was in such a good seat that the drink I was drinking was free advertising. It was kind of crazy.
I will say, though, don't be touching my can. Like, you can ask me, can you put this in a cup? But don't be picking up that's my soda. That's my pop.
He locked eyes with me. It was a friendly kind of thing. And as soon as he did it, I was like, oh, yeah, I know the rules from sitting on press row. I do want to note one thing, Donald. Look, I was functionally courtside at mid-court. I mean, like, these are great seats, but I didn't really see the game as well as I usually do. Grant Hill and Bill Rafferty were like blocking my view of one of the baskets. I was like, guys, can you maybe scooch a little bit? And the other thing is because you're literally in those seats, you're at court level. Like, I think all of us are used to watching games from at least a little bit, tiny bit elevated. Like, my eyes were basically at Dame Sarr's waist, if you think about the fact that I'm sitting and he's standing and the such. So it was just a very different perspective than I usually have on a game. It's hard to get into the same kind of flow. There's lots of stuff that I missed. I'm just going to go ahead and say, for sure, there's lots of stuff I missed because I was so close to the action. Poor me, huh?
I mean, look, Jason, Grant Hill is 6'8", and when he's seated, he's still 6'8" seated. So I've seen you. You're a little tall, but you're not 6'8". So
No.
You're going to have problems looking over him and Adame Sarr and other people when you're that close to the action. But I know you didn't miss this. This was a wild game. It was a bruising, punishing game. A lot of physicality, which we will talk about. But Jason, let's first do the headlines. You were in Greenville, so I took the liberty of grabbing some headlines for you, so you didn't have to do that.
Thank you for doing that. There were tons of headlines in my inbox, and I didn't get home till almost 1 a.m. It was just a very, very long day, and not. I love the headlines, but handing them over to you was a pleasure yesterday, I should say.
Well, I was up late too because we'll talk about the rest of the tournament. The rest of the tournament was action-packed and could not really go to sleep after some of the action that we saw yesterday. Let's get to the headlines. I start with Chris Emmershine, who writes in all the time. He goes, Duke leapfrogs TCU in second half, proving devil horns are stronger. Dennis Baumgartner wrote, Devils prove to have the sharper horns as they dismantle the frogs. Adi Dahmer, I don't know if this is Adi's first time or second time, but we got a good one from her. Adi wrote, Duke lands the final blow and punches their ticket to the Sweet 16. I like that one. Ken Swanner wrote, Duke's second half performance made tadpoles out of the Horned Frogs. I like that one. Ryan Balch wrote, fork in the road, Duke chooses the dominant way. And finally, Ted Allen, who writes in all the time as well, wrote, Lords of the boards, Devils overcome miscues and rebound their way past TCU. Jason, those are headlines. As you mentioned, we got a ton of them to DBR
Lords of the
Podcast
boards. Lords of the boards is really good. I like that. He's been saving that. He must have been saving that because we've had a lot of games where we've had dominant rebounding performances. He saved it for the NCAA tournament. I like it.
You save your best for when the tournament is here, and sometimes you need your best performances, and no matter when they come, those performances are needed and necessary. Let's talk about some of the stuff that we did good in this game, and of course, I want to start with this, Jason. At the second half, under 16 media timeout, TCU had scored 6 points. It was 40-38 TCU, and we were looking.
Duke had like 4 turnovers on their first 5 possessions. It was crazy.
We were looking like we were out of sorts, and it was one of those times where you said, "Hey, in this timeout, we need something to change. We need something to click in because usually we've come out of halftime and started the second half of games fairly well. This was the opposite of that, and we'll talk about the sloppiness a little bit later." But from that point, Jason, again, 40-38 TCU, we outscored TCU 41-18 the rest of the way. And
what are we talking about? Come on.
And it was a tribute to the defense. And first of all, over the course of the game, the issue was not them making shots. It was them getting a bunch of opportunities to make shots, but they weren't making a lot of them. The defense held TCU overall to just 33.3% from the floor, 29% from 3, and our free throw defense was incredible. 50% was how they did that. But in the second half, Jason, it was even worse. Again, take out that first. A lot of this is skewed by the first 4 minutes where they did score 6 points. But in the second half in total, they were just 26% from the floor. They were 18% from 3, and they only attempted 3 free throws, hitting 2 of them. I thought the defense was what brought us back and allowed us to really take over this game. Sure, we got a lot of things done on offense, but it was a testament to, and a lot of the guys, even in the post game, like on TV afterwards, said the defense was what made this game turn on its head.
Yeah, a little later on, I'm going to play you some of the sound I got from Duke players in the locker room after the game. I was able to go in the locker room and chat with a bunch of the players in the team, and I'll especially note later on, no matter what I asked Cameron Boozer, Cam's answer was Duke defense. Duke, like it's kind of funny when you listen to what I ask him and then listen to what his answer is. His answer is like, we got to play Duke defense. I think the defense also plays into a notion of efficiency. And I want to talk about both those things combined. If you are someone who follows me on social media, on the platform formerly known as Twitter, I posted the shot chart from this game. And it is really stunning to look at. It is Duke taking nothing but 3-pointers and shots at the rim. There are a couple little shots in the lane that aren't exactly at the rim. Isaiah Evans specifically took like a couple shots from like around the foul line, that kind of thing. I think Dame Sarr may have taken one as well. But there's nothing in the mid-range, from like outside the lane. And then you look at the TCU shot chart, and it's all over the place. TCU was constantly shooting bad contested shots from mid-range that they're just not going to hit. Like Bart Torvik will chart for you. He'll track for you mid-range shots. He had Duke with a total of 4 mid-rangers. Like I said, none of them were taken outside the lane. They still qualify as a mid-range shot. He had TCU taking 20 mid-range shots. They hit 5 of them. That's 25%. When you attack the bucket the way Duke does, it leads to good things. When you settle for mid-range jumpers, that is where your offense goes to die. And it doesn't just show up in the shooting percentages where Duke on the game is hitting 55% and TCU's hitting 33%, like you said. In the second half, TCU hitting just 26% of their field goals, as you already noted. It also shows up in the free throw shooting. Duke's attacking the rim. Duke is going to the bucket on every single possession that's not a 3-pointer. And as a result, that's why Duke shot 13 more free throws than TCU did. It's not because there's some insane referee conspiracy, and we'll talk about that later on. It's because Duke's shots are right at the rim. And sometimes you got to foul a guy when you're contesting a shot at the rim versus TCU, which took an outrageous 20 shots from, 8 to 19 feet, where you just put a hand up and the guy's going to have a difficult time making the shot and you don't have to foul him. On shots at the rim, Duke was 19 of 24. And this is a place where we're not talking about Big Pat yet, but this is a place where Big Pat matters. Being able to contest shots at the rim. So again, Duke was 19 of 24 on shots at the rim. TCU was just 11 of 25. So even when TCU went to the rim, they were having trouble finishing their shots. The Duke defense was just absolutely on point. David Punch, TCU's leading scorer, was 0 of 6 on shots at the rim. He just shoots 1 of 10 overall, scores just 4 points. Their top scoring guard, Jaden Pierre, was just 2 of 10 from the field. Duke contested shots. When you put a hand up and you contest a guy, it's a problem for the opposing team. And again and again, we saw Duke getting more efficient shots, the Duke defense forcing TCU into bad shots. And over the course of that second half, it played out in that outrageous 40 to whatever it was, 13 run that you talked about.
So it's funny. I'm not sure which box score you're looking at, because I'm looking at the official one that Duke posted, and it says that we were 19 for 23 inside the cylinder, inside that 4-foot circle right around the basket, and that we were 1 for 5 in all other 2-point shots. And that one was that ridiculous runner that Slim made about the 14-10 mark in the second half, where he got the and one. He was just outside the lane when he did that. But again, we were 20 for 28 from 2-point, and 19 of them came inside of 4 feet. And as you mentioned, that's not counting the number of times we did go to the rack and we were fouled and went to the line. And so those shots obviously don't count. But I just love the fact that we hit some threes, right? It wasn't like we had a blitz of threes going around. We'll talk about Dame Sarr and the fact that he was really generating production from outside the arc. But I think it was about the guys being aggressive, going to the lane. They were learning a little bit from Siena, right, and Virginia, and those kind of ways of how to go right at guys and make it where, sure, you're going to get a couple of blocks in there, but in the end, they're going to try and be physical. They're going to try and be aggressive to try and stop you from getting to your spot. Our spot is that cylinder, because once we were inside that cylinder, we were either getting fouled or we were making the basket 83% of the time.
I want to talk a little bit about the rebounding if I can. Duke wins the rebounding battle 42-25. There's some kind of ridiculous rebounding numbers from this game that I just, if you look at, I'm trying to find, wait, I had it in my notes someplace. Oh man, I can't believe I've lost this. My notes are all over the place today, Donald. In the second half, here it is. Okay. In the second half, TCU only had 5 defensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. Now, in fairness, they had like 8 steals. So, they were finding other ways of ending Duke possessions, but they only had 5 defensive rebounds in the entire second half. It's just, that's kind of a crazy number. And for Duke to win the rebounding battle like this again and again, and like every single game, we had 33 defensive rebounds in this game. It's just an outrageous number. And TCU, look, they're not a great rebounding team, but they're a decent rebounding team. Duke is consistently ending possessions by grabbing defensive rebounds. There were a couple flurries TCU had. There were a couple times that, it was, especially when the game was tight, it was a little bit bothersome. But over the course of the entire contest, TCU was one and done. And Duke quite frequently was able to get offensive rebounds. We didn't miss that many shots. Duke was 20 of 28 in our 2-point field goals. We hit 71% of our 2-point field goals this game. I mean, big kind of number. So we only missed 8 of those shots. We missed a lot of threes, but we only missed 8 2-point field goals. The way Duke controls the paint, the way Duke controls the boards, it just gives you an inherent advantage that's really, really tough for other teams to overcome, even when you're kind of playing somewhat mediocre. We don't need to get into, frankly, for 60 plus minutes, Duke was not Duke at Greensboro. And then we kind of found ourselves in the final 15, 16 minutes of our time in Greensboro. And as a result, we're moving on to your hometown, to DC.
Hopefully you were not in Greensboro because there was no game there. It was Greenville.
Greenville. You know what I'm talking about. Sorry.
Greenville, South. I also was worried, Jason, you were going to drive to Greenville, North Carolina. And I would have told you that's also not the right place to be. But you made it to the right spot. You got to see a lot of the back of Grant Hill during this game. But no, I think the one thing, as I shifted to some of the players, there were guys who made, again, key shots at key moments. I want to start beyond the arc because I thought Dame Sarr had a great game. 4 for 7 from 3. He ends up 14 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and a block. And I don't even know that he was the best player in this game, but he was a catalyst on defense, right? We talked about the defense.
Yeah, for sure.
And when him and Malik Brown and Cam inside really started locking down both on just the rebounding, but also just making them take stupid shots that were contested, that was where the game changed. And I'm sure, obviously, the non-Duke people are going to talk about other things, other factors that they think affected this game. But when you look at the final score, it comes down to one thing. We made shots. They did not. We only missed 10 shots in the second half. You mentioned they only got 5 rebounds, defensive rebounds. They can only get 5 defensive rebounds because we made all the shots. But meanwhile, they were shooting 26% from the floor in the second half. They were missing everything. We were grabbing so many rebounds because it was one shot down most possessions. They get one shot. We get the rebound. That's it for them. They have to wait 30 seconds to get another opportunity to score. And when those kept building up, that's how we slowly built that run up where we were just making shots at the other end. We weren't making a bunch of threes and making this a momentum thing. It was our defense was the momentum. And every single time that TCU came down for a possession and ended with 0 points, they got a little bit more desperate every single time. And it's funny. It's a flip of what we had in the first half where I thought we were kind of going too fast at times. We were trying to, not necessarily win the game in every single possession, but we were trying to get momentum and steal it from TCU and make it where the rest of this gym, who clearly wasn't going to root for us, we didn't want them to have any air towards momentum. And so every time we got the ball, it felt like we were rushing to make a play that would get our fans cheering and everybody else sitting down. In the second half, we said our defense is going to get our fans in the air. That's what it's been all season. We have loved the defense that has created slow burns of momentum builds to the point where you look up and in the middle of the second half, I was like, oh, we're up 20. That was not expecting that from this game, but that's how Duke kills teams, is that we almost have reverse kill shots. We have multiple like 8 to 10 minute stretches sometimes where it feels like the other team cannot get a basket. And in this game, it was just several instances of that where you look up and you go, TCU hasn't scored in a long time. And meanwhile, we're just going down there and we're casually shooting 2-pointers, we're getting layups, we're getting free throws, and it doesn't feel like we've built something, but you look at the scoreboard, here we are.
All right, if we're talking about the players, I want to talk about Big Pat, because obviously
the return.
Yeah, the return, getting Pat back made a huge difference in this game. John Shire in the post game, he said Patrick Gung was the first player in history to come in on a scooter and leave with a plus minus of plus 20.
Yeah, and he left on the scooter too. And I want to say that everyone was like, I don't understand how he's on a scooter and is expected to play Pat Gung with minutes. They clearly want to keep that foot rested as long as possible. As soon as he was done with the game, they threw him back in the boot and put him back on the scooter.
Yep.
And also, Jason, as I kind of told you and Scott, when you have a rental car and you don't need it anymore, sometimes you just have to, make sure that you get your miles out of it. Sometimes you just want to take it for a spin. He's got the scooter. He might as well use it. If I had the scooter, I'd be using it the rest of the year just to make sure that my foot was 100% whenever I stepped on the floor.
Well, I want folks to understand, first of all, my understanding, what I've heard is that it's primarily a pain management thing, that there is,
right,
not to say there's no risk, but there's very little risk of him sort of aggravating the injury and it becoming worse than what it is. It's primarily pain management. And that's why I think you can understand why they would say, look, when you're not playing, when you're not in practice and you're not in a game, you're wearing the damn boot so that you don't have to deal with the pain, so that nothing can possibly aggravate it in terms of it being more painful, and you're not putting any weight on it. My bet is that he'll be using that scooter probably for several more days, maybe all the way into next weekend's games, assuming we're still playing then. I think hopefully that we will be.
We're playing on Friday at least. So.
Yeah, right. That's true. We're playing on Friday. So yeah, exactly. That's the weekend. But I think they're trying to make it so that Pat can deal with the pain of it and still be productive in games. He had about as good of a 4-point, 4-rebound, 4-assist, 4-turnover, 4-foul game you can have.
Plus 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus 20. Exactly. Because even though it felt like he was committing like a foul a minute and turning the ball over like half the time he got it, Pat showed what a difference he makes. Look, you could see how rusty he was. You could see that the speed of play was a little bit tough on him after a couple weeks off, but his ability to contest shots, his ability to finish through contact in the lane, it's totally different from the way Malik Brown plays. And I'm not saying that as a criticism of Malik Brown. They're different kinds of players. And having a player like that makes it so much harder on the opposition to double and contain Cameron Boozer. It also frees up Malik to be a little more, outgoing, so to speak, on defense, because Malik doesn't have to worry about his own foul trouble quite as much, because he knows that you've got Pat back there to back him up. By the way, Nick Homenia in the locker room, I didn't record this, so I didn't get this on tape, but Nick Homenia was talking about the fact that it was a relief for him to have Pat, so that Nick was like, I don't have to play as much forward now.
Right, he don't have to play.
Yeah, Nick was like, yeah, now I've got the other guys. It just changes. Pat's presence changes the complexion of how a bunch of other guys on the team play. And frankly, we played that way for 30 odd games. It's kind of what we're used to. It's kind of what we're really, really good at. So having Pat back suddenly elevate. It makes Cam's game easier. It makes Malik's game easier. It makes Nick's game easier. It makes the rotations easier. There's just a lot of stuff that happens better when we have Pat available. And that's how in 13 minutes, despite making a ton of really bad turnovers, you still get a plus 20 out of Pat.
I think the one place where I think he made the most presence, where I was kind of like at ease that, hey, he's going to be okay, is that he was throwing himself in there physically. He was scrapping. He was involved in some not necessarily skirmishes, but like obviously there was the double flagrant, which we'll talk about at I'll talk about why I didn't think he deserved it, but he was throwing himself in there, right? It wasn't shying away from the physicality. And sometimes you do that in the initial moments when you're coming off of a foot injury because you don't know how that's going to respond, because that is a what we call a variable. You don't know how the other team is going to react, when you push up against your foot, right? So the fact that he was able to be physical inside, get some of his points, get some of his rebounds, again, be Pat, right? It wasn't the full version of Pat that we were used to, but we got 75% of it back yesterday. And so I like the fact that he was able to throw stuff in there and get active. And I think that also helped permeate the rest of the team. Like, I know he's hurting, but my man is getting in there. He's scrapping. He's trying to get rebounds. He's trying to get, loose balls. He's trying to save the ball from going out of bounds. He's going right at guys. Like, we need to step it up too. And I think guys noticed when other guys are going on a heater, it trickles down to the rest of this team. That's why I think this team is so great, right? They're so close in the fact that when one guy is succeeding, it just motivates the rest of them to want to do the same.
Yeah, in a very big way. And by the way, I want to segue us a little bit to some of the other guys, specifically to Slim. Now, Slim did not have 3 threes in this game. I know it's like it's unbelievably shocking that that Duke won a game without Slim getting 3 3-pointers. But it was because he figured out a way to score on other stuff. 4 of 6 on 2-point field goals, and especially in that second half, Slim had some really, really athletic, creative ways of scoring around the rim, in the lane, taking the ball to the basket. The Duke statistics department, or whatever you want to call it, the Duke men's basketball stats folks, sent out one of the most ridiculous statistics. I can't even, Donald, this is incredible. So Duke's team record, the record of the team when a certain player scores double digits, 10 or more points, over the past 30 years, the best record Duke has had when this guy scores 10 or more points is Ryan Kelly. When Ryan Kelly would score 10 or more points, Duke was 41-1. That's a pretty good record. Number 2 on the list is Slim, Isaiah Evans. When Isaiah scores 10 or more points, Duke is 40-1. We got some chances, Donald. We got a chance this week to match the Ryan Kelly record. That's crazy. And I love the fact that in a game where Slim wasn't finding it necessarily from 3, and frankly, he didn't find it from 3 in the previous game. Greenville was not good for Slim from outside, but he found a ways to score inside. And again, those finishes, I thought, just some of them are just so athletic and so creative that, like if you're an NBA, I'd love to get Slim back, but if you're an NBA GM, you're like, guy shoots like that, and he's that creative with the ball in his hands. I think, and he's really, really long and playing defense like 3 times as well as he was a year ago. Yeah, Slim had a good weekend. Let's just put it that way.
He had that one ridiculous 3 that he got fouled on, where he kind of flailed it towards the hoop.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's
crazy.
It was so crazy because you could tell he didn't care that it went in. In fact, he didn't even shoot it. He just kind of like launched it at the rim and it went in. And he, of course, he had his Showtime moment, right? He turned to the bench and did the and one type of sign. But there was a point where you obviously you couldn't see this, but on camera you kind of turn back and he kind of has this sly grin as if to say, "Hey man, I don't know what to tell you. That wasn't the deal here. That wasn't what's supposed to happen." But again, he was making plays in different ways. I thought Caden Boozer, despite the fact he only, I air quotes, only 9 points, but he had 4 rebounds, 5 assists. I thought he was, again, instrumental. He played the most minutes on the team. He played 36 minutes. He was instrumental in, again, keeping us structurally sound on offense. And, he took some shots. There was a couple open shots that normally go down for him that he missed. But again, I liked the form. I liked what he was doing. And he also, like Slim, was aggressive at getting to the rim. There was times where he was slicing and dicing through the lane and getting to the rim, getting his shots. So again, I thought he was terrific this weekend in really leading this team from a point guard perspective, but also from a leadership standpoint. We saw that take a step tonight or last night, and we took basically over the last 3 weeks, we've seen that elevate to the point where, hey, if Caleb needs to stay out and continue to rehab, look, we have a guy that we know is capable of getting the job done. Caden has really been good at stepping up so far.
Yo, in the first half, Carlos Boozer, he was yelling at his two sons to be tougher, he was like, he thought, I had friends who were sitting very, very close to him. They were like, Carlos thinks the boys ain't playing well.
I mean, that's fair. And you know what? That is, he says that no matter what they do, he talked about this the other day. He's like, no matter what they do, I always tell them good game, even if they had a terrible game, because they need to know that I was there and I'm supporting them. But yeah, he's going to be the first one. He's 6'9". He can get in their face. So yeah. He can get in their face, tell them, hey, y'all not living up to the Boozer standard.
Yeah. So let's talk about the second half then for my man Cam. 17 points, 7 of 9 field goals. For the game, he has a 19-11-4 line. 19-11-4 with 3 steals and a block shot. Plus minus a plus 25. Cameron Boozer is just inevitable. There's just nothing. I noted at one point, and I was going to say this for the bad, but I'll mention it here. In the first half, Cameron and Caden each had 4 points. They'd only taken 4 shots. They just, neither one of them had impacted the game at all.
Well, Cam had only taken one of those, and obviously he had been fouled a couple times, but like he had only taken one free throw or one official field goal attempt.
One field goal attempt, right? 4 total shots from the two of them. And I looked up at the scoreboard, and Duke had a small lead, close, tight game, and I was like, they ain't gonna. I've seen enough of these kids. Cam ain't gonna end the game with 1 field goal. Cam ain't gonna end the game with 4, 2 points, 4 points, something silly like that. He's gonna get mid to upper teens at least. And I was like, TCU's in trouble. Now I don't want to say I was like overconfident or anything, but I thought to myself, I'm like, they're not going to hold Cameron Boozer down for the entire game, and they've held him down so far. Props to them. Good for you, TCU. It ain't gonna last, and you're not leading. Like, if you hold Cam Boozer down, you need to be like, we got to lead. The storm's coming, but we're going to withstand the storm. If the storm's already ahead of you and the storm ain't happened yet, ooh, that's not good. That's not good, Donald, at all. Not for TCU. It was good for Duke because Cam was just incredibly dominant in the second half. And you mentioned it briefly, that timeout at the 16-minute mark where they went in the huddle. And John Shire said, here is a play that will get a dunk for Cameron Boozer. We're going to run that play, and maybe it will ignite the best player in the country. And lo and behold, Cam got it. It was a really beautifully designed play. Cam gets a dunk, and suddenly Duke is off to the races.
Yeah, I think, again, he was great, and also just generating offense, right? This is where, while many times in the second half, he was the point forward, right? Not necessarily bringing the ball up, but he did bring the ball up a couple times. But he was initiating the offense and running the offense. One thing that he did do was he had great passes over the top. Like the game before against Siena, you notice they were trying to do from like the top of the key from the 3-point line. They were trying to lob it in basically where our guy would catch it right underneath the basket, where they were basically the only thing the defender could do was foul, right? But we weren't doing that. We were throwing the ball out of bounds. They were throwing it to a point where we'd have to catch it and try to force some pass or something that would get turned over. We did much better with that. Just the assists, 17 assists and 27 field goals, 63%. We said in the preview that TCU was a team that allowed teams to score off the pass, and we were finding it. And the great thing was it was big man to big man. One person that Cam liked to feed a lot was Malik Brown. Malik Brown had 12 points, 9 rebounds, assists, and a block. And I think a lot of that was, as you mentioned, in large part due to Pat being there. Like, Malik didn't have to take on those extra responsibilities. He didn't have to magically grow 3 inches to try and battle the biggest guy. He just needed to be Malik. And there was, I laughed again. There was a point in the second half where Malik Brown was defending someone on the perimeter, and the guy tried to pass the ball, and he just swatted it like to the deep corner of the other side of the court, right? They had to run and get it. The shot clock, it didn't go out of bounds. The shot clock kept going. But it's not like he went after it. He just flicked it away as if to say, go get that, restart. I don't know what you think you were doing, but I got no time for this. Like, he had that kind of confidence because he knew he was freer to do a lot of different things. And I think we saw more of the Malik Brown that we've seen this season in this game, because he felt freer to do a lot more things, to try some things, to expend some energy, to go after some blocks, go after some shots. And sure, he didn't get all of them, but I think that part allowed him Pat being on the floor allows almost everybody, I should say, to return to their roles that they've been so comfortable in and why we've been so successful this season.
Yeah, and speaking of returning to their roles, I mentioned Nick Homenia. Nick posts a plus 22 in plus minus in his 26 minutes of playing time. And Nick didn't have a big statistical game. He only gets one rebound. He only had one. He had that 3-pointer. And I'll talk about that 3 a little bit later. And I asked him about that 3 in the postgame locker room. I'll play that sound for all of you. But I thought, once again, Nick's the guy out there doing the dirty work for everybody, whether it's handling the ball, whether it's playing hard on defense and stuff like that. I thought Nick had some nice contributions in this game. And I wanted to, last thing I wanted to mention one thing about Dame Sarr that just stuck out to me. So like I said, I was at court level. So you have a much better sense of how big some of these guys are. So Dame was guarding their point guard for TCU most of the game. I can't even tell you how much bigger Dame was than this poor dude. It was like, I think
the answer is 9 inches. So
I was like, it's like a dad playing against his son. It was, I mean, Dame's he's so big and so long. Oh man. And he moves so smoothly. It's just, I feel so sorry for opposing guards who are like, they stuck this dude on me, this pterodactyl. There's like no other way to say it. That's what he is. And it was just an interesting perspective for me watching it from court level and being like, I feel sorry for whoever this guy's guarding.
The last thing I had was going back to our shot chart, and we mentioned the number of shots that we had in the cylinder. Did you see the average 2-point distance that we had? Normally we are very good at this. We're one of the best teams in the country at this. We were like, usually it's around 4 feet and some change, right?
Right.
The average 2-point attempt distance for us last night was 3.4 feet.
What?
3.4 feet. That means almost every shot was like, again, where a guy was, if you stretched out their arms, they were closer than that to the rim. Like that's an incredible stat. And that just shows again, how we went to that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to just go straight to the rim and say, hey, once we're inside this little circle here, this little half circle, that's not your world anymore. That's ours. And we clearly own the paint, but we really owned that inside 4 feet.
By the way, TCU's average distance was 7.5 feet. There's a huge difference. If your average shot is a 3-footer versus a 7-footer, it's just, that's a great formula to win the game, Donald.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk about the things to improve from this game since we are still playing. Jason's going to give us some of the post-game reacts from inside the locker room. We'll do player of the week. We'll do play of the game. We have a lot more coming. And very quickly, we're going to talk about someone who has retired from the game of football, a legend in Duke. We'll talk about him after this.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
This episode is brought to you by Beneful. Dogs of the world, lend me your ears, snoots, and little toe beans. We've been sitting and staying for boring food for too long. It's time to demand high-quality ingredients, fresh from the pantry. Together with Beneful freshly prepared meals, we can start a mealtime revolution. Can I get a woof woof? Kick boring in the bowl with Beneful freshly prepared meals. Visit Purina.com/Beneful to shop now.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's.
Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
This episode is brought to you by Cologuard. Do you know what's really scary? Not screening for colon cancer when you turn 45. The Cologuard test is non-invasive, requires no special prep or time off work, and ships right to your door. In just 3 simple steps, Cologuard takes the scare out of colon cancer screening. If you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about the Cologuard test. Cologuard is available by prescription only. Learn more or request a prescription today at Cologuard.com/screen.
We are back. We are continuing our review of our recap of the TCU win. Of course, Duke is in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. They'll be coming to my hometown here in Washington, D.C. later on this week. But before we get to all that, we got to talk about the things to work on from this game. And I'll just say it. There's really one big story from this game on Duke's side is that we were sloppy. We had 17 turnovers. It felt like, as I mentioned, it took a long time to settle in. It felt like we were rushing things. It felt like we were trying to not necessarily win the game on every single possession, but again, as I mentioned, it felt like we were trying to steal momentum on every single possession with some really cool pass or some really, really funky play. And there were several times during the first half where you could see John Shire and the coaching staff on the sideline just telling them, hey, calm down, settle down. And they just weren't able to do it. That's why the first half felt closer than even the 4-point lead that we had at the half. But, it was something where I feel like in that first 4 minutes of the second half, Jason, you mentioned that they had 4 turnovers, and it just felt like they were out of sorts. Once they were able to settle that down and play clean basketball, look what they did. They won running away, but we really need to clean up the turnovers.
Yeah, 17. I should have taken the time and checked. I can't remember the last time Duke won a game where they had 17 turnovers. And to win it by 20 plus points is kind of insane. We were just unbelievably sloppy. I mean, Cam had 5, Pat had 4, Malik had 2. That's 11 turnovers from our big men. As a result of all the turnovers, TCU shot 20 more field goals than Duke did. Now, I know part of it is like Duke took a lot more free throws than TCU did, and we were way, way, way more efficient on our shots. All these things make sense. The stats, when you put all the different, if you look at an individual stat, you don't get a full picture. When you put all the stats together, you start to get a full picture. So, but when you commit that many turnovers, yeah, you're getting a lot less shots at the bucket. And we survived against TCU, who, according to the efficiency metrics and the such, was the second worst team left in the field. High Point was the only team worse than TCU coming into this game.
Siena.
No, High Point. No. I'm saying in terms of everyone left in the round of 32, High Point was the only team worse than TCU in the efficiency metrics.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry. I thought you meant the whole tournament. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. No. I was like, Siena, we eliminated them. Of every team left in the field, in Ken Pomeroy's efficiency metrics, again, TCU was the second worst team left. So Duke survived in this game, but it's going to be a lot harder in future games for Duke to be this sloppy. We won't be facing teams that'll do some of the things that TCU did wrong to allow us to win the game. So you've got to clean it up. And it extended, by the way, the sloppiness to some extent, I thought extended also to the defense, that we were giving TCU was getting better shots in the first half and early in the second half than Duke should be giving up. They were getting some really good looks from 3. In fact, we're almost in the first half, TCU hit 5 out of 13 3-pointers. We're kind of lucky it wasn't even better than that. They had a couple that they missed. I was like, oh, that's a good look, and we're fortunate that they missed that shot. We cleaned it up, but there was a reason that this was as tight as it was. A, it was because Duke was sloppy on offense, and B, it's because Duke wasn't contesting the way we should on defense. And then, but literally the moment we got our head out of our butts, so to speak, and started playing the way we're supposed to, the game, to say that it turned is like the understatement of all time. It turned in a huge way.
You mentioned the field goal attempts and the fact that that TCU took 20 more shots than we did. We made 4 more than they did, which again, bringing it back to defense, that's just how good the defense was.
Yeah, if you want to mitigate the field goal discrepancy, you hit 55%, they hit 33%. Suddenly, the field goal discrepancy doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, Jason. The only other really big thing that I thought, and sure we should definitely talk about it, is the fact that I felt like on both sides of the ball, this was a very poorly officiated game. There was a lot of calls there that were questionable. Hey, look, we could talk about, Boozer's flagrant one that he got for the elbow. I didn't like it, but according to the letter of the law, that's what.
No, I completely understand. When I saw the replay, I could see there was a monitor. There's a monitor right next to Bill Rafferty. It had a little label on it. It was like Rafferty's telestrator, so it was so he could write on it and stuff. But that was carrying the broadcast on there, so I could see replays, and I saw that, and I was like, that's completely accidental, and that's also a flagrant.
Right. No, so again, my point was the online chatter that was, oh, he threw a punch, right? Okay, that wasn't a punch. Oh,
that's ridiculous.
He clearly elbowed him. He didn't clearly elbow him. In fact, he didn't even know he was there, right? And the fact that the reason why it was a flagrant one is because when he kind of leaned down to drive past punch, his elbow was above his shoulder, right? And that's just because, when you kind of drive around somebody, you kind of do this with your arm and lift it up a little bit. So it was just slightly over his shoulder. Okay, I'm okay with that. They also had the technical foul that was called. I'm sorry, the flagrant one that was called
on Tanner Tolan. Yeah,
Tanner Tolan. Again, letter of the law type of deal. Nobody was saying that it was intentional. Nobody was like he obviously was trying to catch himself and he wrapped his arm around Boozer's neck. Hey, look, nobody on Duke was saying that's a punch. We should throw him out of the game. Look, that happens all the time. We're glad that he was okay out of that situation. It sucks that it is elevated to a flagrant one, but that, again, letter of the law thing. The double flagrant on that came with Gongba and who was it? Toolson or whatever?
It was Edmonds. Xavier Edmonds.
Yeah, because it fouled him out of the game.
Yeah.
I thought that was bad because that was if you look at the replay several times, which we got a lot of, Patrick did nothing wrong except fall. And really he was pulled down. But again, the skew was they're like, oh, Patrick, clearly pulled down Edmonds. And like, no, Edmonds is on the ground. Pat's hands are in the air. And then all of a sudden he's pulled to the ground by Edmonds falling. And if you want to call it a double foul, that's one thing. But to call it a double flagrant, I thought really showed that this crew had really lost control of the game in certain aspects. And I think just to be fair, right, to end this, to be fair, they missed the goaltend on Malik Brown.
Yes.
And they doubled down on that by Jamie Dixon arguing about it and getting a technical for it. I thought that was bad too. So again, this wasn't just like, oh, Duke gets all the calls thing, or hey, they were really, going against us with TCU. The free throw disparity is what a lot of people are looking at. That missed goaltend and everything was looked at. But look, it was not a great game on both sides for the rest because they allowed this game to get physical. They allowed this game to kind of get out of control at times, and their inconsistent application of the rules made it where both teams kind of threw up their hands and have to say, okay, what can we do? Like, how can we play these guys? I think we were better at adjusting to that, which, as we've noticed in some games, we're not as good at adjusting to, a refereeing that's under average. But I think this one right here was one where in the NCAA tournament, it's obviously going to be exacerbated. We ended up winning because of our defense. We didn't win because of any referee calls, but I did not like some of the calls that were made in this game.
Yeah, I thought the officiating was not good. I didn't have, from my vantage point behind the announcers, I didn't have the greatest view of every call. That I didn't have the benefit of replays all the time, but it did look like it was a very, very physical game. I could tell that for sure. And there's this, insane narrative that comes out of it that Duke gets all the calls. I saw both Tim Brando and Matt Norlander on social media were kind of hammering this. They weren't specifically saying Duke gets all the calls, but they were saying the refs lost control of this game. The refs, intervened in this game more than they should have and stuff like that.
Well, Brando did say that it benefited one team, and he was not talking about Duke. He mentioned that TCU was getting the brunt of most of those calls, and I don't think that was true. I think it was pretty poor on both sides.
I mean, if you are someone who's educated about college basketball and advanced metrics and stats and stuff, then you're aware that Duke is one of the teams that fouls the least in the country. Duke plays great defense, and they've learned how to do it without fouling. I think I read someplace that Duke has like the second lowest foul rate of any team in college basketball. TCU, on the other hand, is not that way. If you followed Jamie Dixon's career, if you're aware of what Jamie Dixon did when he was at Pittsburgh, his teams play super physical. They pick up a lot of fouls. That's just the way Jamie Dixon teaches them to play defense. When you don't have as much talent as the opposition, then you kind of have to ugly up the game a little bit. You kind of have to make it into a physical game, and that's what Jamie Dixon instructed his team to do. That's the way they've played all year long. So it shouldn't come as any surprise that they were hammering Duke, daring the refs to call every single foul, and the refs were calling a fair number of them, but not all of them. Like you said, sure, Duke got a break on Malik's goaltend, but the people who are complaining about like Tanner Tolan, by the way, I know there are a lot of people who are saying, well, Tanner Tolan had no choice. He was going to fall into the ground and, kill himself if he hadn't grabbed onto Cam. I want to be like, well, maybe then you shouldn't just take a flying leap at somebody. Hey, Tanner Tolan, you know how not to fall into the ground like that? Don't jump like that at a dude. Tanner Tolan went up in a way where there was no choice but for him to land on top of Cameron Boozer. So, yeah, the refs went, oh, look, he's got his arms wrapped around the dude's neck and he's bringing him to the ground. This looks like a wrestling move. Maybe we should call a foul here. Maybe we should call a flagrant foul here. What are we even talking about, people, to say that that's not his arms were wrapped around Cam's neck? It's just silliness. It doesn't make any sense. And I want to point out, by the way, that like different teams playing different styles result in different foul numbers. Virginia Commonwealth played Illinois in the game right after ours. VCU didn't take a foul shot until like halfway through the second half, 3/4 of the way through the game. We were like 14, 15 minutes, like 30 minutes or so into this game before VCU took a single foul shot. I didn't see any huge narrative online about that Illinois gets all the calls. It's only about Duke.
It's never that. Yeah, it's fine. And again, we're here to say, go ahead.
I was going to say really quick, one more thing about it. Bring it on, people. I embrace it. Yep, Duke gets all the calls. Yep, you're playing 8-on-5. The refs are in our back pocket. You think all those things you want. We'll take every drop of it because you know what? It means you're not focused on the ways to actually beat Duke. If you're worrying about that crap, then you're not focused on the ways you can actually succeed against this Duke team, because thinking that you're going to succeed because the refs are going to like tilt things in your way or something like that is just stupid talk. And so I embrace it. Everyone against Duke. Bring it on, people. You hate us because you can't beat us.
I mean, look, I was going to say that in the end, it was terrible on both sides. Like the referees we didn't write a check that cleared. There was fouls. The foul disparity, Jason, you wonder how big this foul disparity was? 20-15, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was equal opportunity hating on the referees there. We'll leave it at that. Jason, before we get to play of the game and player of the week, I mentioned before, you mentioned that you were in the locker room. You got some sound from some of the players after the game. So talk about what you learned from some of these guys that you spoke to about this victory.
Yeah, so I was able to chat with a whole bunch of the guys in the team, and we're going to play the sound for you. And by the way, have a listen. You'll hear me sort of introduce each player before we start talking to them. I say their names so that on my recording you'll be able to tell what's going on. We're going to start with some sound from Cameron Boozer, a female reporter at the beginning of this. She asks Cam about when he heard Pat would would be playing in the game, and she apparently had some information, and Cam was like, what do you do? It's kind of funny. I included it because it's kind of funny because Cam was like, what are you talking about? We had no idea about that. And then you hear some sound from Nick and Isaiah, Malik, and Dame. I want you to pay special attention to two things. First of all, no matter what question I ask Cameron Boozer, his answer is, we have to play Duke defense. And then I want you especially to listen to the interview I have at the end with Dame Sarr, where he talks about the fact that Duke, frankly, only played good for like 16 minutes this game. Like Dame just comes out and admits it. Dame doesn't have enough media training to know how to do locker room talk. He's like, yeah, we kind of sucked. We only played good for about 16 minutes of this contest.
Hey, we just talked about that. So yeah. At least he's seeing what we're seeing. So.
He's honest, but have a listen. It's a lot of fun. Here is Jason in the locker room with Cam, Nick, Isaiah, Malik, and Dame.
I'll find out that Pat was going to be playing tonight. He said he found out Thursday.
Thursday. I mean, that's a little early for me. I think we found out yesterday he was going to give it a shot, but it still wasn't for sure. It was more just about how he was feeling in practice and everything. But all day today, I knew he was going to play or at least give it a shot. So,
Cameron, you only took one shot in the first half. I know you got fouled a little bit. Do you ever feel like, does John ever say to you, you're not being selfish enough? In the second half, felt like you took it to the hole a little more.
Oh, I mean, he never says that. I mean, we just got to keep making the right play, trusting the pass. But the main focus is the defense. You know, they're obviously a great team. They're going to make some good shots. They got great players that can make some big time shots. But we got to get back to that Duke defense. That's the main thing we were talking about at halftime. Obviously, I found ways to be more aggressive, but the main focus was getting stops, and we did that in the second half.
And they're a really physical team. It looked like a couple times you were upset that fouls weren't called. How'd you feel about playing against guys who were banging on you that much?
Yeah, they're definitely a physical team, but we're a physical team too. You're not going to get every call, but I definitely feel like we should have got a couple we didn't. But that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on what we can control, and that's getting stops, making the right play, trusting the pass, and good things will happen for sure.
Good luck in D.C. Nick, you had a three that you missed from the corner, and then they got the ball back, and you got the exact same shot again. Do you mentally say, "Oh, I need to adjust" or anything like that? That was a huge shot when you took it.
No, I don't think. When I had shot the first one, I missed it. It honestly felt like a good shot. It just didn't go in. So when I shot the second one, I was just like, I'm gonna shoot this the exact same way. I put in so many reps that when I shoot, I don't really think.
Thanks, man. Hey, Isaiah.
Kept him to one shot.
Talk about what it was like to have Pat back out there for you guys, just the lift it gave you all.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, obviously he's a really good player. Both on offense and defense. He knows an interior presence, and so, he definitely gave us a boost.
And TCU played really physical. They picked up a lot of fouls, but they were bumping you guys a lot. You guys clearly were prepared for that, but talk about what it was like going through that.
I mean, yeah, like you said, we're prepared for it. It wasn't nothing that we couldn't overcome. So, it wasn't nothing too crazy.
And you had a really big first half. I mean, you had to because Cam and Caden, some of the other guys weren't scoring as much. Do you sort of look around and say, this is one of my moments, or is it just constant?
It's just constant.
Thanks, man. Malik, do you feel like having Pat allows you to – does it free up your game a little bit, allow you to do a little more because there's another guy back there?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, just, his presence on the court. Just even when I'm looking at the bench and I just see him over there, vice versa. Just we talked about it, obviously going to this morning. Just knowing he was going to be able to play today, I just know it took a lot of load off of everybody.
And TCU is a super physical team. They were banging you guys, picking up a lot of fouls. Did that affect your play at all? I mean, it took a while for you guys to pull away from them.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't affect us, but obviously we just had to play smart. Obviously there was a lot of fouls going off in the first half. We kind of got them in a little bit of foul trouble, but just knowing going into this game, they wanted us to get in foul trouble, so we had to be smart. And obviously, they were a very physical team, so we just wanted to make sure we played our best basketball.
Dame, huge game, man. The first step-back three that you hit, I mean, that kind of opened things up. It felt great coming out of the fingers, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it felt great, time was ticking and, I knew I had to shoot it. So, I made a move and I stick the shot and it went in, really happy. And just, happy that of the defensive performance we had in the second half and for the team to win and be able to advance.
Now, when it was really tight in the second half, before we opened it up, was there any nervousness or anything where you got, because obviously the expectation is so much further than this.
I feel like, we'll be more nervous if we was doing everything we were supposed to do and we'll still be losing. But we didn't do none of the things that we were supposed to do, and that what made the game close. And understanding that if you want to win, you have to do everything right.
So. What was it that you guys weren't doing? What was Coach saying to you? We worked on this and it didn't happen. What's going on?
Just defensively, we were so loose, and they were able to do whatever they wanted for real, and we wasn't testing them early. They were getting into our paint. They were getting offensive rebounds, and that's not us. We was not taking the shots we wanted to. So, just understanding that we gotta execute the game plan to be able to win games, and but we have to do it for 40 minutes. Today, we was able to do it for maybe 16 minutes. Maybe 20 minutes. So, just getting better for real, and understanding that for the next games we gotta get better.
And obviously, having Pat back is a huge lift. Just talk about being able to see the big guy out there with y'all.
Pat he's one of the most important players for us. He's our starting big man, and I feel like Malik did a great job without Pat, just making winning plays. And we didn't lose no games without Pat, so that's also great. But having Pat out there is a whole different. We can give teams a whole different look. He has such a great touch around the rim. He's a big-time rebounder, big-time passer. So, just really happy to have him out there for sure.
Good luck in D.C.
Thank you.
By the way, I wanted to mention I really enjoyed Nick Himenia when I asked him, because frankly, Nick took 2 3-pointers that were identical to each other, like 30 seconds apart. He missed the first and he made the second one. And I was sure he was going to say, "Oh, dude, let's I was sure he was going to tell me that he made a little slight adjustment on it, because that's what I was thinking watching it. He was like, "No, the first one felt good, so I knew the second one would be good." I was like, "Okay." Nick.
I actually expected that answer, because shooters, they do they shoot so many shots that they don't tinker with that. Like, you think about the one of the great quotes is from Pete Rose. Talk about, hey, when you're in a hitter slump, batting slump, what do you do? And he goes, "I don't change my swing. I change my position in the box. That's it. I might go forward, I might go backward, I might go closer to plate, I might go away from plate. I might choke up on the bat, I might choke down the bat, but my swing stays the same every single time, because that's what got me here." That shot is what got him there. And so I'm sure he was like, "Hey, I'm in rhythm. Take it again. This time it goes down." I like that.
The other one I really enjoyed was Isaiah Evans, when I was like, "Hey, when the other guys are struggling and you're scoring, do you feel like you have to take on extra load?" And he was like, "Nah."
just cool, calm, collected. It's funny, he's showtime on the court, and then when you hear him in some of these press conferences, he's very much like, yeah, that very short answers, doesn't like to talk that much. He lets his play do the talking and let that be his canvas for his art. I love that. Jason, let's go to our play of the game. There's a couple of opportunities here, a couple of plays I had under consideration. Which one did you have?
So it's tougher for me to, again, when you're not watching on television, when you can't pause the DVR and things like that, it's tougher to get notes on these kind of things. I had Dame's step back 3-pointer that he made. It was when Duke was sort of stretching out the lead. I want to say it took us from a 7-point lead to a 10-point lead. The shot clock was almost burned. The ball's in Dame. I was like, this is a bad situation. I was just thinking to myself, shot clock's almost gone. Dame is not like create your own kind of shot guy. He's usually a get a pass from someone to kind of, make a shot guy. And he took a step back 3-pointer and he nailed it. I was sitting right next to Chris Lee of WRAL, one of the sports reporters, a great guy. I was having a good time talking to Chris. And that was one of those shots where it went in. And you know how, Donald, sometimes you're next to someone, you like lean into them? Like Chris Lee and I were like bumping each other. We're like, oh my God, Dame hit a step back 3-pointer. It was pretty awesome. We enjoyed that. So that was my play of the game.
So for me, it was at the 13-12 mark in the second half. This was coming out of the timeout that we took after going down, basically allowing them to score like 6 points in the first 3 minutes. We then come back. You mentioned Boozer had the dunk right out of the timeout, and then on the next play he got fouled and made a couple free throws. This was the third straight possession that we gave him the ball. He gets the ball in the post. He kind of double pumps underneath the basket with 3 guys around him. He scores. He draws the foul, and he knocks down the and one. At that point, our lead was 3. He stretched it to 6. That was the start, the real start of the run that allowed us to pull away from TCU. And as you mentioned, that was the catalyst. 3 straight possessions. You got 7 points out of Cam Boozer, and he was off and running. At that point, you knew, okay, Cam is back to being Cam. TCU is in trouble. So that's what I had for my play of the game. Let's switch to player of the week. I'm going to go first, Jason. I had 3 potentials here. And we had,
let me hear them.
Yeah. I had Cam, I had Caden, and I had Slim. I'm going to go with Caden because 28 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, just 2 turnovers on the week. I think also his leadership, as I mentioned, I think he played all but like 6 total minutes over the course of 2 games.
No, it's 55. It's 55 minutes played. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah. No, it's more than 55. What am I saying? I had 55 minutes, but that's wrong.
He had 36. He had 36 minutes yesterday. He had 36 against Siena. So he missed all but like 4 minutes of basketball. But yeah, I think really most importantly was his leadership. He he had the great game against Siena to help us really storm back and take the lead and hold them off. But also, again, I thought his poise throughout the week continued to press on. He is becoming a very, very important player. I'm just going to take some credit for this. Throughout the season, I've always said that there's going to be somebody who doesn't get a lot of playing time, who doesn't get a lot of minutes, who doesn't have a lot of production, that is going to be someone in March that we rely upon. Enter Caden Boozer. That's what he did this first week. That's what he did in the ACC tournament. That's why he inks out player of the week over Cam and Slim to me.
Yeah, it was a tough decision. If you're taking Caden, I'll go ahead and take Cam. 41 points, 24 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I'm omitting. He had 10 turnovers. We're not going to talk about that. But man, come on, 41 and 24.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we even talking about here? And by the way, Duke fans, we all hate it when guys miss free throws. I mean, we really hate it when guys miss free throws. Cam was 18 of 19 on free throws in the first 2 rounds. 18 and 9, yeah, that's like 93%, something like that, 94%. I don't even. It's a big old number, Donald. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's a guy getting fouled a lot and hitting a lot of free throws. So yeah, I had Cam as my player of the week.
Again, fine quality, and I'm glad we shout out Slim. Let me just say 33 points, 13 rebounds, 5 of them offensive, and 2 assists on the week. I thought he had a fantastic week as well. Jason, we have a couple quick notes before we wrap up. The first one I wanted to mention is on the football side of things, and I want to send a great happy retirement to Coach Cutcliffe. Cutcliffe he obviously retired from coaching a couple years ago when he left Duke. He then became like an administrator for the SEC. He was kind of like an advisor consultant for them for the past year or so. And he officially announced that he was retiring from all football activities just the other day. So wanted to send a great thank you to him, because I will be real. I remember when Duke football was at its lowest point. I was there. I was on the team. I was living it. And he brought us not just out of the cellar, but into national prominence, into a team that was relevant, into a team that, the quote was, are you sure Duke football? You damn right Duke football? That was Cut. Cut did that for this program, took us to new heights, and allowed us to have a stable foundation from which to build upon, and what we've seen culminating this past year in an ACC championship for the Blue Devils. So very, very happy retirement to him. Thank you for all you've done, not just for Duke, but for football.
There was a moment, Donald, where David Cutcliffe had taken Duke from despicable to respectable, and the University of Tennessee came calling.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we want you to be our coach. And David Cutcliffe said, I'm not doing it unless I can bring all my assistants with me. And they said, well, no, we've got other guys in mind for assistants. And David Cutcliffe said, I'm loyal. I'm loyal to Duke. I'm loyal to my assistants. I'm sticking around here.
I'll tell you the exact quote, Jason. The exact quote he said was, I got a job. That's what he told. That's the final thing he told Tennessee was, we want you to have this job. And he goes, I already got a job. That was enough.
It was not easy to bring Duke back to respectability. We were the worst Power 5 program, period, end of story. And David Cutcliffe is the man responsible for the fact that Duke is now a team that, knocks on the door of the top 25, makes bowl games every year, played and won an ACC championship this year. As much as we credit some of the other coaches who followed him, David Cutcliffe paved the path. So yeah, he deserves a wonderful, wonderful retirement.
I hope he gets to enjoy football Saturdays the way he wants. Hopefully he shows up at Wallace Wade for some games and gets the love and flowers that he deserves. I hope he just has a great retirement, because after several years of coaching some of the best players and some of the best quarterbacks that have ever played this game, he's earned that retirement, and I hope that he enjoys it. Thank you very much for cut. Last thing we got, Jason, is to you. I know you have a one quick word about the Sweet 16.
Yes. So Duke has now, for the first time since 2009, 2011, we've made 3 consecutive Sweet 16s. I know it kind of feels like Duke makes a Sweet 16 all the time, but it's a big deal. And again, we haven't done it 3 years in a row since 2009, 2011. Duke has also now won 34 games in a season in consecutive years for the first time ever. Never before have the Blue Devils won 34 games or more in consecutive seasons. And we have now achieved that. I want to thank our good friend Bobby for providing us with those 2 factoids. Bobby's the best. And someone texted me, I don't remember who it was. I got, 300 text messages yesterday. I forget who it was who sent this to me, but someone pointed out that playing on 0 or 1 day's rest, playing on 0 or 1 day's rest over the past 2 years, Duke is now 15-0. If you don't have time to prepare for the Blue Devils, if the Blue Devils don't have a lot of time to prepare for you, Duke gonna win anyway. 15-0 on 0 or 1 day's rest. Whoever we play in the Sweet 16 better hope they beat us, because if we're playing on Sunday, we're winning on Sunday in the Final 8. It's just numbers, Donald. Can't fight the math.
I think it's like 31-5 or something over the course of Shire's career so far.
Yeah,
and
but
4 of
most of
those
those losses came this first season. Yeah,
4 of those losses were in the first season. Yeah. So again, congrats to the Duke Blue Devils. We are off to the Sweet 16 right here in Washington, D.C. We'll be back to preview all of that. Duke women play today. They're not playing as of yet, but they will be playing this week. So good luck to them. And we will be back at many points this week. We're going to try and get Jordan Brenner back. We got to preview the next game, whether it's Kansas or St. John's. We don't know. But we will prepare for that once we find that out. So stay tuned to this feed. Stay tuned to dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Send your emails, send your questions there. We'll try to answer some of them on the show as we are able to with time allowance. But this has been a long one, but it's been a good one. Time to get up out of here. He's Jason. I'm Donald. Time for the Duke Band to play us out and take us right here to Washington, D.C.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.